Welcome to Theater Therapy, a podcast for movie lovers who treat going to the movie theater like a therapy session. With co-hosts Aly and Ems, we geek out and deep dive into all things movies, including top picks, movie reviews, best soundtracks, our current hyperfixations, and more. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy today's session. Welcome back to another session of Theater Therapy. This week we are on our 5th installment of Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Before we jump into it, just a reminder about our monthly movie. This month for December, we're doing Unaccompanied Minors.
Yep, and we'll just get straight into it. As usual, like we've done with the others, we're kind of just going over the, biggest parts that are different.
Well, things
the
that, stood out
moments.
to us.
Yeah.
Because this is the biggest book, and so a lot of things were cut out or changed.
Yeah, but in my opinion, they did it very well.
This is one of the best movies. This movie's so good.
This is one of my favorite movies, actually.
There's a different writer and a different
director.
Yes. So this one was directed by David Yates and screenplay by Michael Goldenberg. The book came out in 2003. The movie came out in 2007. And yes, that was the difference of the producers.
Which was
writers.
it Michael, who he has a history and he had some work done before with political type movies, and that was one of the reasons why they brought him onto this, because this one covered a ton of political matters.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so he done, real world more type political movies.
Which this book is the most political.
Yeah, it is, because you have all this stuff with the ministry going on and, things constantly like that, and so that was part of the reason why they brought him on to handle that, and he was the one who decided and came up with the idea to do kind of the newspaper montage. You know how you kind of go through and you see all these different headlines and stuff?
Which, if you pause the movie at any point, there's a ton of, fun Easter eggs and, little, random things. You get lots more info on the Wizarding World through a lot of the articles that are written and things like that, which is kind of fun.
And that was kind of their idea, is that they're like, okay, well, we want to include all this information, but we don't really want to include it.
Have it said.
Yeah, because obviously you just don't have time to fit that all in. Mm-hmm. So they did it that way, and it ended up being kind of a staple of that movie, and went on to be used in several others.
So that's the difference of directors, screenplayers. This movie does introduce a lot more characters. Mm-hmm. We finally get Luna.
Yeah, we finally meet Luna.
I love Luna as a Ravenclaw. We'd be best friends. I love Luna.
Yeah, she is a very fun character.
And her casting was almost perfect.
Very well
Ivana
done.
Lynch, amazing as Luna. So good.
I also really enjoyed, because in the book, she's not the one who tells Harry about the Thestrals and such. Mm-mm. But I think it's so beautifully done that, she gets to be the one to tell him, and they get to bond so early on about losing their parents. Because they do have a really, good friendship throughout the rest of the books and stuff, and that kind of, set the tone. Yeah.
So, same thing for, when she loses her shoes. I mean,
they
in
have,
the next
a lot of good little bonding moments.
And, in the next one, he invites her to the dinner and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I do think that was a good, kind of starting point for...
Well, and they bond over the fact that they've both seen someone die. So, it's just... I think that was a really smart moment. I really enjoyed any of the changes they made for the most part in this movie.
Were good.
Really liked.
Yeah.
They did a very good job of taking, one of the longest, most complicated, most heavy-worded books.
This book is very long, and a lot happens. Yeah. A lot of content.
Putting it into a very digestible movie.
Yeah.
I mean, the author even said that this is her least favorite book. So
it is kind of a hard read. It takes a long time, because it's just,
it's very
kind of slow. It is. She could have cut out some stuff, because, the information is great to learn a lot more about everything, but, this, I think the part of the problem for me on this one is that they have their owls, and there's just a lot more class content that is just a little more boring and, slow. Because they talk a lot about them studying for those, and, the essays they write, and,
take you through the actual testing.
Which is, kind of cool, but it's also kind of unnecessary.
We're to the point in this series that, we want to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
We've had the build-up, we've had the classwork, we've had the world building.
We know that they can do some magic, and then you see more of it when Harry's training them for Dumbledore's army.
But, I mean, Voldemort is back. We're ready to, have more talk of that type of stuff. Fight scenes and, wars coming. And so...
I feel like that was the main problem for me in this book, is that there's just a lot more, kind of, not boring, but just, dull class content
kind of unnecessary
that you could have cut out and freaking put Quidditch in instead. More Quidditch. There's Quidditch in the book, but there's no Quidditch in the movie, which is annoying.
Which is interesting.
Like, they don't even talk about Ron making the team.
Right, Ron is on the team in this.
They don't even show that to the next movie. And same thing, they don't show Ron and Hermione being prefects.
Well, and we also see, Fred and George, they get banned from Quidditch. Well, George and Harry. Isn't George and Harry? Yeah, I don't know. And Fred almost does or does.
Yeah, one of the twins gets banned with Harry because they attacked Draco after a game.
And the other twin was held back. I can't remember.
And then he almost.
I think it was.
Actually,
Fred.
no, I think he does get banned too because
I think
Dolores is like, you would have been fighting if your teammates hadn't held you back. So 3 of them get banned.
Yeah, but that's completely disregarded because obviously Harry is the team leader on the next movie.
Well, he's the team captain in the next one. This one it's Angelina, but they don't even mention Quidditch at all in this movie, which is very irritating because I love Quidditch.
Emily does love Quidditch. Ugh. I mean, I guess it makes sense for the tone of the movie and stuff, but it's
there's some plot points with Dolores that they could have made for Quidditch, but anyways, very irritating.
Yeah, which this is when, in the book, Hermione and Ron have been made prefects. Yeah. That's also just completely disregarded in the movies.
Which, again, makes Ron seem less smart and less of a student, but really, Ron is so good in the books. I just, it makes me sad. There's a couple scenes in this movie that they do show how,
Yeah, he has a couple good moments in this movie.
It's still an irritating plot. I remember when I read him for the first time, I was like, they become prefects? I never knew this. Yeah. I was never...
It's completely disregarded in all the movies. It's never mentioned.
And Harry he's a little offended at first because he was expecting to be made prefect kind of instead. And then at the end of the book, Dumbledore tells him he didn't make him a prefect because he had so much going on.
He knows he already has
enough. But he was kind of sad that he didn't make one because then he doesn't get to be included with Ron and Hermione a lot of stuff.
Because on the train ride to Hogwarts, they're in the prefect's cart and he's with... the others,
with Neville and Ginny, and then there's a couple other
sisters. And isn't that's also when he meets Luna in the book?
Yeah, it's on the train.
So, and I feel like I'm okay, it's kind of fun because you want to see him with the trio.
Ginny. She's a year younger.
Yeah.
So Ginny knows her from classes.
Yeah, and you want to see him with the trio, but at the same time, I feel like the book did a good job of kind of giving him more time to build up his relationship with the others as well. Heck,
him and Ginny have a whole better relationship in the book than they do in the movies. So, and same thing with Luna, you see a little bit more. With Neville, you see a whole lot more of him in the books. And this book, we can finally talk about more why too. Another thing that they just made small, they cut out. Well, this plotline they cut out entirely. The Spew plotline with Hermione and advocating for elves, but that's not. I mean, there's more of this in the book, but then in this movie too, they don't even show Dobby at all. Dobby was in the book quite a bit-ish.
He's the one who finds the room of requirement.
Yeah, well, because he's working at Hogwarts
tells him about it.
And all those things and everything. They only show Creature, which is the house elf for the Blacks. He's at the
Grimmauld place. Show him a bit, but they also don't really explain that he was the one who kind of helped trick Harry into going to find Sirius. Yeah,
we'll explain that.
Yeah,
because if anybody hasn't read the book.
So towards the end of the movie and the book, I guess, Harry has this dream where he sees Sirius being tortured at the Ministry of Magic.
In the Hall of
Prophecies. And so he, in the book, tries to, get a hold of...
Through the fireplace, yeah.
Yeah, but it's Creature who...
answers,
and he says, oh, he's not here, he's at the Ministry of Magic.
When in reality, he was tending to Buckbeak up on the roof, who Creature had injured to get him out of the house to trick Harry. Because Harry had that vision, kind of, and then when they tricked Dolores into the forest, Snape kind of put it together that Harry had, because when he didn't come back, Snape was like, oh my gosh, he ran off to the freaking ministry. Yeah. He calls over to the Phoenix, everybody tells Dumbledore, things like that, kind of. He's at the house, everybody goes, he tells Sirius to stay there. Sirius doesn't want to stay, so then he leaves, and then Creature has to tell Dumbledore, and then that's when Dumbledore finds out kind of the betrayal of Creature, because Creature had taken an opportunity of when, on Christmas holidays, Sirius told him to get out of, the room he was in. Mm-hmm. He took that opportunity to leave Grimmauld Place and went and kind of told a little bit to Narcissa and kind of betrayed him a little bit, as much as he could, without breaking the Fidelius charm. But anyway, it's just kind of cool. They don't even touch on that. The Creature was, an important character. Because I feel like, too, in the Deathly Hallows, he shows up again, obviously, because they go back to Grimmauld Place. Mm-hmm. And there's some more tension there, because at the end of this book, Harry realizes that, Dumbledore tells him, Hermione was right. We should have been nicer to Creature, because if he had had any sort of, like, kindness, he might not have betrayed us, and, Sirius wouldn't be dead.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it's just kind of an interesting plotline. They kind of, like, talk more about how Hermione's kind of right, and how they treat elves, and things like that. And
which they kind of, again, disregard in the movie.
Which is so upsetting. I really hope that they touch on that in the new TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just feel like, well, for one, it makes Hermione more of a rounded character. And for two, it's just another good plot line to, like, talk about. It builds the world.
Yeah.
It builds the whole, like, kind of... And it's the more political side of it, too, of, like, they look at them as lesser creatures, and they look on them as, like, servants and things like that. So, anyways.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing that they left out. But, I mean, again, like, I get that they have to cut stuff out.
Well, but they could have shown a little bit more of it.
You could have had, like, what, one line of dialogue that
like,
something
that? Because they don't even mention that. But whatever.
Something else I thought was really interesting is, Delumbrus. Oh, why can't I say her name?
I have no idea. Aly, you literally struggle every time.
Yeah,
say it again.
Use Delumbrus.
Dolores
Umbridge. I feel like I'm, like, mixing her first and last name. Dolores Umbridge.
Delumbrance.
Shut up. Anyways, I kind of enjoyed her character in the movie.
They
made her even worse in the movie, I feel like.
She's, like, one of the most hated characters of all time.
Yeah, one of the most hated villains. So, and in the book, she actually only makes a couple different...
Like 6 rules.
Like, 5 or 6 different rules or whatever,
decrees,
her little decrees. And in the movie, there's, like, over 100. And then you get that whole montage, which I just love that montage. The song, like, it's so iconic. The song is
so iconic. Like, if that comes on, if I'm listening to Harry Potter, I know immediately... like that scene. And also some of our favorite quotes are in this book / in this movie. Like we quote Snape all the time,
obviously,
literally all the time. We're like, you first applied to be the defense against the dark arts teacher, yes, and you were unsuccessful, obviously. Literally, if one of us is obviously at any point in the day, we always immediately
say it again,
say it back.
We've probably already done it, like, in every single episode of this podcast, guaranteed. As well.
Because it's just, I don't know what it is about that line.
It's just
it's so hilarious. It's just
so funny.
Oh.
So, anyways, I love how they did the montage. The montage of them doing the Dumbledore's... Why can I talk today?
I don't know.
Dumbledore's army, like, their whole little classes.
Well, it's a great way of showing time passing, too, of, like, more happening.
And getting a lot of this, like, information in there and such.
Which, speaking of Dumbledore's army, something funny that happens in the book that doesn't happen in the movie that kind of shows Hermione's clever
and just, like,
magic. How kind of ruthless it is. Because, like, in the last book, you see her literally trap, what's her face?
Rita Skeeter
in a jar in her animagus form. And in this book... Hermione, the whole Dumbledore's army. Geez, you're passing your mistake. Oh gosh, I can't speak either.
Dumbledore's army.
And the first meeting at Hogsmeade, she has the paper, and she makes everybody sign up. But it's like it's charmed so that if you like spill or whatever on like the secret, then you'd have
terrible acne.
But it spells out something.
It spells out sneak.
Sneak. That's what it was.
Across the forehead.
Across your face. And so she like literally tricks everybody into doing this, which is so hilarious. And then she makes these coins, like these enchanted coins that they can discuss in their next meeting. Right. It's kind of sneakily. And then later on, it's actually not Cho who betrays Dumbledore's army. It's her friend.
Yeah.
And so she gets the sneak on her face and pimples, which is so funny.
That's part of the reason why Cho breaks up with Harry.
Because he thinks it's funny.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I thought it was quite brilliant, and she's all, like, mad about it. And then, obviously, they had some other issues, but...
Well, because Harry always sticks up for Hermione, because they're best friends.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. Well, and, I mean, come on, like, this is
pretty
very
serious
matter,
Why would you
for these kids to be dealing with?
Hermione's so clever for that. Like, I'm like...
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like, they gotta do what they gotta do. Like, they are literally trying to prepare for a war.
Yeah.
So, good on her.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. That's kind of an interesting thing, too, is that it wasn't Cho who spilled.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Which is fine. I don't love her anyways. She's just, like, kind of a throwaway character to me. Like, she's...
Yeah.
I don't know. She's important because she's kind of, like, Harry's first crush.
But she's also one that, like, never... Like, I always forget she's even in the movies until I'm watching the ones where she's in.
I mean, I think the movie did a great job, though, of making her smaller. But I wish they would have not made her smaller and Ginny smaller. They needed to make Ginny. Ginny was just done so dirty.
This is one of my favorite movies with Ginny.
She does get a lot more credit in this than any of the rest of them, I would say.
it's interesting because, like, just little moments you can tell how much, like, she's kind of jealous of, you know, Harry
little comments
and
that,
Cho,
like, Hermione
and,
will
like,
make about Harry and Cho. And Ginny is
and you
supposed to...
see
She has
how
a boyfriend
powerful
in the
she
book,
is.
in this one,
Yeah.
but in the movie she doesn't have a boyfriend.
Right.
Which is funny.
Which, yeah. I mean, again, like, it's adding a whole other character that they didn't really need
It's kind of foreshadowing, though,
movie.
too, of the fact that, like, it's been years, but Ginny still hasn't gotten over her crush on Harry.
Yeah.
And so in the next book, when things progress and she dates Dean and then he gets jealous, it's kind of like a funny, like, parallel.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's kind of smart. So,
anyways, I really enjoyed Ginny. I wish she was done better.
Again, I'm saying if they make the TV show,
yeah,
they better do her better because she's a great character.
Yeah.
And, like, especially because she's the only girl in the Weasley family and she's the youngest, I feel like she's got a really strong, like...
Oh, yeah.
Character. Like, she could be a really strong character if they just let the writing be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I feel like they
Ron.
just try to focus on
why.
some of the other stuff.
They made the Weasleys a little too silly to me. And I get that, like, they're supposed to be a fun wizarding family. But as a whole, they kind of changed the characters to be more silly.
Yeah, more ridiculous.
When in reality, they, like, Harry goes into this wizarding family not knowing anything about the wizarding world. And they just take him under his wing. They protect him. And, like... But, like, they've been through this. They were in Order of the Phoenix back when Harry's parents were there. They've been through all this terrible stuff. And they have all these kids. And they take Harry in. Mm-hmm. They protect him like one of their own. And I feel like they show that in the movies. But, like, not to the same degree of, like... Mrs. Weasley literally just, like, loves Harry like a son. Mm-hmm. And, like, the Weasleys, like, are his family. And I feel like in the movies, they make them a little bit too goofy sometimes. And don't show the severity of, like... how good of wizards they are, how much, like, they take this whole thing seriously.
You don't see as much of that. I mean, kind of later on in the movie, you see a bit more of their seriousness.
Yeah, and later on in the series, but, like,
but at that point, it's like, yeah, obviously it's going to be
because, like, they totally basically cut Ginny out, like, a lot of her stuff. They make Ron way more stupid. They try to, like, diminish his... When in reality, he's a great Quidditch player. He's actually pretty decent in classes.
In this book, though, he does suck.
In this book, he's bad at Quidditch. But, like, he becomes a pretty great Quidditch player. Fred and George are great Quidditch players. They make their whole line of Weasley Wizards Wheezes, and, like, which is honestly pretty impressive to be able to make those things. And you have to be good at, like, charms and magic. Yeah, they freaking dropped out of Hogwarts. Yeah, in this book, and so I don't know. I just feel like that's one of my things that I have a little bit of beef on with the movies as a whole. Is the Weasley family as a whole kind of is done dirty a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you really look at it, if you really dissect it, and you know the characters from the book, like, you're kind of like.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of interesting because it seems like in the first couple movies, the directors and the story of the movies, it's very focused on, like, the world of Harry Potter, Hogwarts. You don't get a ton of character growth. I mean, you still get some, but, like, it's, like, building the world
need to, like, stuff. Drive the story forward. Bare minimum.
Bare minimum. This one, the director and the writer, they wanted to focus on the characters. Mm-hmm. Having this character growth, building out the characters, so and they didn't take as much time, like, because in the book, like, you actually go through this whole little walkthrough of the Ministry of Magic, and they, like, the group of the kids all kind of split up, and, like, all these different things happen. But in the movie, like, you see how close they've all become. They're bonded together. They pretty much stay together for the most of it. Yeah. They get, like, somewhat split off for a second.
And the only reason that Harry can defeat Voldemort at the end is because he sees his friends come to him
and they
aid him, and the love that he feels for them, like,
so we get this beautiful thing for the whole movie that, like, love is the greater magic. Mm-hmm. And you see that from the beginning to the end of the movie. It's, that like, is the theme of the whole
series, too. Right. And this is the first movie that really touches on it. Like, you get
really
a little bit in the first
home.
One when Dumbledore tells Harry, like, you have a magic that, like he underestimated, and Harry's like, I do, and he goes, it's in your skin, and it's the love that your mother, had for you when she died. But, like, that's, like, the only time they really mention it. The rest of the time, you don't really hear about it till this movie. Mm-hmm. And it is basically the entire theme of Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's, like, the whole catalyst. Like, that is the reason he can defeat
love
him.
Was greater than any magic, pretty much.
And that ties into the prophecy, because the prophecy foretold that
which
he would have
this is so random. This is so funny, though. But this made me think of Aquamarine when she's like,
oh, yeah.
Why does everyone love? It's the closest thing we have to magic, which is so, like, cool. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought about that.
It's a very beautiful messaging, really.
Which, let's talk about the prophecy. Because this is my main beef with this movie. Mm-hmm. Because, well, I guess two things. This and the fact that, before we jump into the prophecy, let's talk about Neville's parents. Okay. So after Weasley gets injured by the snake and attacked, he goes to St. Mungo's hospital, and I think it's the Christmas holiday, the kids go and visit him there because he's not home yet.
Right.
And then they see Neville there with his grandma, and that's when you get introduced to his parents for the first time, which again, in the movies, never mention that they're still alive, just that they got tortured, which to me, before I read the books, I thought that they were dead.
They kind of
I didn't realize that they were alive, and that they were like,
make you perceive it that way in the movies.
So Harry and Hermione and Ron meet Neville's parents, and
his grandma tells them everything.
Kind of everything happened. Tortured, kind of went crazy. Now they're kind of in like a weird vegetative state, kind of.
Right.
And so you see more of like Neville. That's why he's kind of so like embarrassed about family stuff. Never really talks about it. But anyways, I just think that that's kind of a important thing that they cut out of the movies.
That being said, I do really enjoy the scene we get in the movie of Neville and Harry kind of bonding over the fact, and Harry being like, oh, we'll make him proud type of a thing. Like, it makes me tear up every time. I just think it's so sweet. It's a very touching moment, but in that moment, it does make it seem like they're both dead.
Yeah.
So...
But anyways.
But that kind of ties into the prophecy, because if you didn't know, Neville was one of the possible prophecy...
Okay.
Whatever.
The prophecy, let me read it, because this is... When I first read this book, and I read this prophecy, I literally freaked the freak out. I remember I told Aly, I was like, did you know that this is what is supposed to be? Because my mind was blown. And I still think about it every day. Every time I watch this, I'm like,
prophecy could have
irritated.
been about Neville.
So the end of the book, because the prophecy gets destroyed when they're in the fight, the Ministry anyway. So Harry didn't get to listen to it, and Dumbledore's all like, and Harry's like, well, it got destroyed. Dumbledore's like, well, the only other person who could repeat it word for word is the person who it was like said to. And Harry goes, who's that? And Dumbledore's like, it was me. He was interviewing Trelawney. For a position of divination at Hogwarts, because her relative, like a relative that she had, was like another person or whatever who did that.
To do it.
And so when Dumbledore wasn't really impressed with her, he's about to leave, and then she starts speaking in that scary kind of voice that they use. And this was the prophecy that she gave. Foretold, So this is right out of the book. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have the power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the seventh month dies. So she tells this to Dumbledore when he's interviewing her, and Snape overheard the first part.
Yeah.
Just until the part that, like, let me read it again. I know which part it is. He hears up until the born... to those thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. He heard up until that point. He didn't hear the end part about, like, the power.
And that, like, the Dark Lord would mark him as his equal.
Yeah, because this is when Snape was still a Death Eater, so he went and told Voldemort, and...
Since he hadn't heard the whole prophecy, Voldemort's like, oh, I'll just go kill him.
Yeah, well, because it could have been Harry's parents or Neville's parents, because they're both part of the Order of the Phoenix.
And they've both
defied him
at least three times. And Neville was born on the 30th. The day before Harry Potter. And Harry is the 31st of July.
So, but the whole part of the prophecy that is so interesting, that I'm just like, why did they not talk about this at all in the movies? Because this makes it so important. They don't really, they touch on it a little bit, but not enough to where, like, you really understand the severity and, like, complexity of it. Because he goes after Harry, he marks him as his equal and transfers some of his power to him. Right. Which then makes Harry his equal, because then he has the partial tongue, he's connected to Voldemort where he can feel his emotions, kind of read his mind in a way. And so he marks Harry then. He could have picked Neville, and it would have been Neville, because he would have been like...
But it was his own doing of going after him.
The half-blood over the pure blood, because he related to Harry already. And
he's like, well, the only wizard worth being would be the pure blood. And since Harry's a half-blood, he, saw a bit of himself in him. It was like a
self-proclaimed prophecy. And so, like, Voldemort literally did that. And then the power he didn't know about was obviously love. Because Harry's mom's...
moment she stepped in front of him and gave the lie.
It really goes into depth about the prophecy, which is, like, such an important plot line in all of the books and movies. Like, it's It's very important. And so you learn about some of it at the end of the movie. Like, Dumbledore tells Harry some of the details. They don't dive into all of it, though.
Right.
Which I feel like they could have made time for, in my opinion. They could have made time for it because it's very important.
And it almost would have made it kind of more unique. Because, I mean, if you read fantasy books and if you watch fantasy movies, a very common trope is that there is a chosen one, the prophesied person, the one to do it all. Right. And this book is, there's the chosen one, but it's unique in the stance that there could have been another. Like, it was between him or someone else, and it was the villain's own doing that sealed his fate. Like, so it kind of makes it unique. It kind of gives it a different twist.
Well, and then if they had explained it a little bit more in this movie, I feel like then when they get into the Horcruxes later on, it would have like connected the dots. It would have filled in a little bit of a plot hole there of like you understand even more of like kind of what happened.
Right. And more of the fact that like Voldemort passed his power into Harry, and in doing so he also embedded him with piece of his soul.
Like, it's kind of like an overarching, more connected thing. And so that's honestly is my main problem with this movie. Yeah. I love this movie, but I feel like they could have, if they were to include anything, they should have included more of that scene, because it connects the dots and makes a huge change then going forward to and what Harry does in the next few books and movies, because now he knows the prophecy and he's well aware of it, and like he's like, well, I'm the chosen one, and Harry, and you know what I mean, like he kind of gets that like attitude and aura, but at the same time he's struggling because he's like, he knows that when it comes down to it, he's gonna have to kill Voldemort if he wants to live.
And he does kind of say that at the end of this book. He's like, the prophecy, sir, does that mean one of us has to die? Yeah.
Which, I mean, as a 15-year-old kid, that'd be so overwhelming.
That would learn. Like, can you imagine? Like, and not only that, like, one of them just has to die, but, like, he has to be the one to kill Voldemort.
Yeah. Nobody else can kill him besides Harry. Like, Harry has to be the one to kill him.
And Harry can only be killed by Voldemort, which is also another interesting tidbit. So even if any of the Death Eaters try to kill him, they would have been unsuccessful. So,
which would have been so cool if they showed that.
That would have been, like, can you imagine having this build-up moment and, like,
somebody tried to kill him and like what would have happened?
And it like
would have it rebounded or would have just been like what? I'm curious because they don't really like talk about that more than that.
Yeah, I think that would have been kind of interesting. Yes, it was a very powerful moment to see Sirius die, but what if it had been shot at Harry first
and
rebounded off of him and then killed Sirius?
That would have been awful.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the guilt Harry would have felt?
Well, he's already guilty.
And he would have felt even more guilt. It would have been like the worst survivor's guilt ever
this
because
poor kid.
Yeah. That
Harry's
honestly
been through so much. The trauma.
That would have been an insane twist.
Yeah. Because it is something that they don't ever talk on, and there's a fan theory out there that after Harry kills Voldemort, then like he's untouchable for the rest of his life. Like nobody else can kill him. That's never confirmed or denied. Yeah,
but in my mind, since the prophecy's been fulfilled,
that's kind of a stretch on the
kind
magic.
Of go.
But like, the prophecy was still enacted and Voldemort was still alive. If they would have shown that, it would have been kind of cool.
It would have been cool, and it would have been a very interesting twist.
Because like, yeah, he gets attacked a lot and he gets like chased, but like nobody ever tries to kill him directly because Voldemort has.
Yes and no, yeah.
Yeah, like Voldemort has told him like
he's mine. Yeah.
But he doesn't also know the full extent of the prophecy.
Right, he's just greedy and wants his revenge.
The prophecy is very complex, and it is very... Well, it's complex, but it's also, like, simple. I don't know. Yeah. It's just... Once you know it,
interesting prophecy,
once you know, like, what it is supposed to be, you kind of can't overlook it, because that's, like...
And it makes sense.
So important.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess the movie, yeah. And it's interesting, because Harry actually listens to part of the prophecy when they're in the ministry.
Just a tiny bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, just a bit of it. And... yeah, that whole, like, scene plays out differently, but not in any major way that, like...
Well, they just cut out half the prophecy.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, like, the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like, there's some other stuff that happens. His friends actually get more injuries sustained during that little battle. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. Nobody died or, like,
but I feel like there is some
foreshadowing,
injured. Though, for, like, what's going to happen in the next few books. Same thing with... Because, like, in the next book, Half-Blood Prince... there's more of a battle when Dumbledore gets attacked/killed at the palace.
Right.
And so I feel like it's kind of foreshadowing that, like, now there's going to be, like, lots more fights in the next two to come.
Which in the movie, I will say, when I was watching them, go, you know, it's kind of interesting that these little young wizards are fighting these awful Death Eaters and not one of them gets injured.
Yeah, because in the book they actually get injured.
Yeah. But that also being said, the fight between Dumbledore and Voldemort at the end of the movie is
upscaled in the movies, but it's so good.
It's so epic. That's one of my favorite fight scenes of the entire movie.
It's so like smart. Like they used some of the spells that they used in the book in the movie, but they added a few to show like the power that they both have. Like they're fighting like top level at each other. Yeah. Like Voldemort and Dumbledore are going head to head, and like they're not pulling their punches.
Yeah. Well, and it's like so cool the movie, the way they filmed it, and like the sound usage. You know, I love the scene where it's like Voldemort's getting ready to like, you know, do the crazy little send all the glass and such at him or whatever. And, like, it builds up and then it goes quiet for a second and then it, like, blasts again. Like, I am a sucker for good
sound effects
music and sound effects and things like that.
Which, something that people always get wrong that I've heard it both ways. Actually, I don't know for sure which one's right. The scene where Sirius dies and he's screaming and it's blacked out.
Oh, yeah.
The rumor's always been that it's because Daniel Radcliffe's scream was so heartbreaking that it made everybody cry.
Oh, I've heard that,
But in reality, they just liked the score a lot and they wanted the music to really tell a story.
Right.
So,
and, I mean, yes, the scream probably could have been very heart-wrenching, but my favorite thing in movies is when the scream is silent.
Because it shows the anguish and like, and then you can let the music really like
build up
versus just like you watching them and hearing them scream. It's like you're watching them scream, but you don't hear it. You just hear this music like building and swelling, and you're like, then it's kind of almost up to the viewer to like interpret it in their own way.
Well, and I mean his performance, he was obviously like screaming and like just completely raw with emotion.
Actors, I am just blown away by them. It's so cool to me.
Yeah. Honestly, that part always makes me tear up too. Because also, like, the way they did it, it was like you hear his first little gasps and, like, whimpers of, you know, like, distraught, and then the music cuts off and, like, he's being held back.
Too, I think the fact that, like, Lupin is holding him back from going after him. Like, Lupin just watched one of his oldest friends die. Basically, all of his friends are dead at this point that he was with.
Yeah.
He's holding on to his best friend's son, trying not to let him, you know, go die again or whatever. And it's just an overall heartbreaking scene.
It is, yeah.
Especially because they gave us some really tender scenes between Harry and Sirius earlier in the movie. And so it just adds more to that pain and, like...
Which is also interesting. I don't know why. Again, I do not know why it is all these times I've watched the movies, I just have ignored the fact of how often the Crucio curse is used.
Crucio? Yeah.
Crucio, yeah. Because when Harry chases down Bellatrix, he uses it on her.
But it's unsuccessful.
It's not really, it doesn't really work. Like, she's obviously shocked by it or whatever.
Well, because he doesn't have the intent of hurting her.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, obviously he's mad at her and stuff. But
in order for that to work, you have to have the intent of causing pain.
Yeah, really deeply. And so then I think it's interesting because then that's when Voldemort kind of starts appearing and he's trying to get him to kill her and such.
Which, like, how ballsy of Harry to, like, yeah, he's in battle, but, like, still, that's an unforgivable curse. I know. The use of any of them is in, like, a one-way ticket to Azkaban, and, like, he just, like, pulls it out of nowhere, like, Crucio! Like, he's 15, and he's fighting Bellatrix Lestrange, and he just, like, shoots that at her, like...
Yeah, that was insane to me watching it again.
Balls.
I'm like, wow, I've never even, like, noticed that before. So that was kind of an interesting scene. And then, yeah, like we talked about, the end scene with him and Voldemort and Dumbledore and everything plays out a bit differently in the book. But that's where they kind of...
in the movie, though.
Yeah, because they bring that theme again full circle, like with Harry, you know, Voldemort's kind of in his head and showing him all these, like, horrible things and anguish and, you know, making him feel horrible and kind of torturing him a bit. But then Harry's like, no, like...
You'll never have love and friendship.
You'll never have love and friendship, and I feel sorry for you. And then, like, he thinks of his friends and stuff, and... Yeah, Voldemort can't stand to feel love, so that's what makes him leave Harry's body again. And then, like, he's standing over him, and then you get the, you know, the minister arrives and everybody else, and he's like, he's back. I love that line. It's like, he's back. Like,
back. Yeah. Which, something that they don't talk about is that Fudge then gets fired at the end of this one, and then at the beginning of the next book, it starts off with him telling the, Prime Minister of England. He's introducing the Prime Minister of England to the new Minister of Magic, and that's how the next book starts, actually. Which, in the next movie, you see a little bit of him. You see more of him than Deathly Hallows. I can't remember his name now. He's the one who gives Harry the snitch and things like that after Dumbledore gets killed.
Oh, right.
Because, anyways, but yeah, you Fudge gets fired because...
I mean, the movie shows, like, the newspaper
Yeah.
thing again, and it says minister to resign or something like
because
that.
everybody's like, dude, you royally messed this up.
Well, and I also think it's funny because in the book, Dumbledore's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I'm reinstated as, you know...
Mm-hmm. He just tells him, like, I'm back.
Head of Hogwarts.
Suck
like,
it up.
Yeah, like, you messed up.
Which, did you know, this is a fun fact, Azkaban was created, I can't remember the name of the wizard, but Azkaban and the Dementors were created by some dark wizard.
Oh.
And when he died, then it was revealed to the Ministry, and then they took it over.
Oh, yeah,
and used it as a prison. And then in this book, Voldemort promises them more souls than they have there, so that's where they leave, and then the breakout happens.
Right. Yep. And in the book, there's a moment where Harry, like, is walking in somewhere, and he kind of starts having a fit and is laughing maniacally, and, like, he can hear himself laughing, and then Ron slaps him to get him out of it, and he's like, oh, like, Voldemort's, like, really happy about something, and the next day is when they find out there was a breakout. So he's like, oh, that's why he was happy, because that happened.
That is a good thing to mention. It is really cool that in the movie they use, anytime he does that, like, head twitch thing, he's being possessed by Voldemort, which I just love details like that. It's so smart. It's a good piece of, like physical choreography, physical, like, blocking that shows, like, the small difference of, like, a change of character, which if you've ever been in part of any sort of, like, theater, movie making, things like that, like, those choices can be very important to display something non-verbally to the audience that something's changing, which I love little details like that when they make those, like, important and, like, known, because that happens quite a bit through this movie, and you might not always pick up on it, like, when he snaps at Ron or when he snaps at Dumbledore, like, he has a slight head twitch or something like that before, which kind of shows that, like, Voldemort is almost taking over him, right? And, like, his emotions so strong that it's making him lash out.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, it's interesting, because in a book, I mean, obviously you can kind of write that down and write in, like, he's being, you know...
Right.
taken over, but in the movie they have to, like, really show it. But I also find it interesting in the movie because, like, there's a few moments where you're having kind of, like, a transition between scenes, like, one is specifically, like, you, like, kind of go into the clouds or whatever, and you hear, like, Voldemort's voice, kind of, like a weird sound or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just a reminder to the audience that, like, it's a nod that Harry has Voldemort in his voice, and a reminder through the movie that that's, you know, in play. Yeah. So, kind of interesting. Something else that stood out to me, since we were talking about Azkaban and the Dementors, is in the book, Dolores Umbridge.
Oh my gosh.
My goodness. Dolores Umbridge admits to Harry that she's the one who sent the Dementors after him. Which I totally forgot about until reading it again.
I feel like this makes it funnier, because, like, in the movie, like, the scene, she's like, are you suggesting that the Ministry had something to do with you being attacked by Dementors or whatever, like, her comments? And it's like, yeah, you crazy psycho, like we know that it was you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I will say, I can't remember the actress's name now, the lady who plays Dolores Umbridge, though, like,
she did so good.
She is so iconic for that. Because she seriously makes you just, like, despise her. Like, you hate her.
Literally the worst villain ever.
And, like,
I hate her more than I hate Voldemort.
Like, well, yeah, she's just, like, under your skin. Like, her little...
She's, like, a very different type of evil.
Oh, my gosh. Her performance is just unmatched. I'm like, she should have won awards for that. Because, good heck, she's amazing.
But, yeah, overall, a very good movie. A very long book.
We're getting to my favorite parts. My favorite part of the movie series now. We're like...
Same. This one really kicks it off for me because... It has a lot of my favorite, like, fight scenes.
Well, like, and I love it. Like, the characters are older. I love Luna. I love a lot of the more magic that they use.
Yeah, we get way more magic.
And we're getting... I remember we mentioned that at the end of this, we'll tell which our favorite movie is. So we're approaching... Like, we're in the realm now where that could be this one. Or it could be one of the next three. So just putting it out there.
I've been thinking, like, I'm not sure which one's my favorite.
I'm pretty confident I know which one mine is.
I, like, think I do, but I'm, like, I keep going back and forth. Every time we watch one, I go, well, maybe this one's my favorite.
I have a favorite for, like, certain things, and I have... We'll talk about it. In the last episode, we'll dive into that, because... Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I hope you guys have been enjoying our little Harry Potter breakdown series.
It's been so much fun.
It has been a ton of fun. We just have a couple more to go, and then we're finished, and we'll be in the new year, which is insane. So
yeah, so come back next week. We got another Christmas episode for you before Christmas happens, which is so crazy.
I know, I can't believe it's almost Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, as always, you can follow us on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram,
Everywhere.
YouTube. Everything's linked down below. Comment and tell us what you'd like to see more of in the new year, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.